Okay, ready to go? Vijay? Hi,
Wait.
Vijay.
No, wait a sec.
Sanjay?
Yeah, you ready to go?
Sanjay, to you.
What has happened? Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Today we'll be walking the and none other Vijay Dhasmana doesn't need much introduction. He's a man of wild, and he's been working in this. He knows his trees very, very intimately. He's been working with for many years, done many projects with and he's the best guy to walk us through the Aravalis. Aravalis, as a mountain range, are one of the oldest, possibly the oldest, the 2.5, 3 billion years old, and not much work has been done. But Vijay knows Aravalis and the forest and the trees very, very intimately. So over to Vijay.
Thank you, Sanjay. Welcome, everybody. We were thinking of what to present. I think we have done enough of rewilding of Aravalli Biodiversity Park. So we thought we should, do something different. So the idea came that why not to explore the jungles of Aravalli? And, I don't think it has been a star attraction for a lot of people. Lately, it has been in limelight because of the destruction, because of Supreme Court questioning Rajasthan and Haryana on the issues of Aravalli. And there is a growing interest, I must say, in the Aravalis and its jungles. Now, as Sanjay pointed out, Aravalis are perhaps one of the oldest fold mountains in the world, and about 3 billion years old. That's quite old, very old actually. So 3 billion years means that it has gone through a lot of churning. So whatever you see today is not, it's not a granite hill that you see that must have happened because of some, igneous eruption. There's a lot of cooking that has happened, yeah? So there is a lovely history, natural history to this range. So I will take you to the journey as I see it, and I hope you will enjoy it. Please feel free to ask me questions. The journey is in a way to understand the jungles. I have been fascinated by these jungles, they are very dry. They lack, the moisture regime that you have otherwise in central Indian forests, or in Uttarakhand, or in Northeast, or in rainforests. They are very different jungles, yet they are vibrant ecologies. So therefore, they have taken my fancy for last 15 years. And I have been lucky to go through these jungles with some of the great people, such as Pradeep Krishan, who has introduced me to these jungles. And Dr. Satish Sharma, I think he knows his plants, his birds, his animals, like back of his hand, He's a ustad. And we have done several trips into the jungles of Aravalis, and I've been very, very fortunate to learn something from these people. So to start with, I think we will look at Aravalis, and I'm sure most of you would know what Aravalis are. Aravalis are fold mountains like the Himalayas, and basically tectonic plates meet, and there is rising of the mass, and that's what is Aravalli. Now it's very old, so it is very old. So it has gone through lots of churning, as I mentioned before, and in the northern belt, what we see is the most exposed bit is the quartzitic rocks. What you see in the picture on the right is the quartzitic rock. And the left is a photograph from the space, and you can see how Aravalis are, they have gone through lots of churn. And there has been serious weathering. So hills which were earlier, some of the geologists believe that they were as high as the Himalayas, have now weathered and become just outcrops, at least in the northern Aravalli. And then they go up to about 1700 plus meters in Mount Abu, and the flora over there in Mount Abu is quite different from the flora that you see in other parts of Aravallis. Now, if you look at the on the right, the rock formation, these are quartzite. Now, what are quartzite? So quartzite, they have quartz crystals, and they have basically, it's a metamorphosed rock that has been formed out of sandstone. Now, what is sandstone? So sandstone is something, a rock that forms, has marine origin, and basically they are formed in the oceans and shallow oceans. And over time they solidify, and then due to cooking, that is pressure and heat, the grains of sand become crystallized and they become quartzite. So where are the Aravallis? So Aravallis are from Delhi all the way to Gujarat. And this is a district map which shows you as to which all districts have Aravallis in them. So here you can see that, most of the districts, all the way, except for maybe Jaisalmer, a little bit of Jaisalmer. In Rajasthan, almost covering all the districts. In Haryana, you have in Mewat, Gurgaon, Faridabad, Jhajjar, Mahendragarh, and Delhi. Some of the geologists believe that the Aravallis go all the way down to Mount Kailash. Now, I was talking about cooking of the Aravallis, and here in this picture, we can see that there are three kinds of rocks. So the topmost rock that you see is quartzite. Quartzite, which has been metamorphosed, and the central layer, which is the blackish layer that you see, very exposed in the center, is the sandstone. So this sandstone was cooked and you got quartzite. And at the base of this sandstone lies BGC, or banded gneissic complex, which is the craton, which is the base plate of the Indian peninsula, or it's the tectonic plate itself. So they sit. So there is BGC, on top of that there is sandstone, and on top of that there is quartzite. Now you can, as you drive from Delhi to Sendra, there are many roads which are exposing the rocks, and you can see the different profiles of these rocks. It's fascinating, and I have been looking at the rocks for last now 4 years, and I'm very fortunate that we got a project to work in Jaipur under the leadership of Pradeep to rewild sand dunes. And in that we have an exhibit of rocks of the Rajasthan region, and the rocks that have contributed to creation of sand. So that journey took us to the understanding of different mountain systems and the rock formation. And so I've been very fortunate to know about this. Once you know the geology, you also understand the plant community on them. So we'll explore that. Now, on the left-hand side of the screen is sandstone. Perhaps you can see the granular feel to it. You can actually, if we could zoom in, we could see the sand grains. So that's the sandstone. And on the right is the quartzite. And you know what it is? These are ripples. So, I mean, it's fascinating to touch them and realize that they were the top layer of sand in a shallow ocean once upon a time, and that's what you're touching. So this is very, very beautiful, formation of shallow water. All these ripples tell you about mechanics of waves that have formed, and due to drying up, and then these structures remain and solidified and became rocks. Now in Aravallis you get not just quartzite, not just sandstone, not just BGC, but you also get granite. You get slate, you get shale, you get phosphoric rocks, all kinds of rocks. But the main habitat that that one of the distinct habitat that you can see is of granite as well. So if you drive from here to Viratnagar is from Alwar to Jaipur. There is a place called Viratnagar. There are exposed granite hills. This particular picture is from there, and you can see the scooping effect of erosion on the granite. You can also see that unlike quartzite, which is all covered by plants, the granite is not covered by plants. You can see the exposed, nicely exposed rocks, and vegetation only happens where there is a possibility for the plants to put their roots in. This is another example of a granite rock. You see that plants are happening only where there are cracks, big cracks, and they can make inroads into the rocks. Otherwise, it's very difficult for plants to break into quartzite. Now, another interesting phenomena in the Aravallis is that there is a piling up, there's huge piling up of sand. A lot of it is fluvial, which is through water, but also alien wind-blown sand. A lot of sand is being deposited on the southern western side of the Aravallis. And the plant community, why do we mention this? Because the plant community that you find on sand is very different from what you find on the rocks. So the jungles of the sand dunes or fossil dunes that you find next to the Aravalli hills has a very different jungle compared to what you find on the hills of the jungle, hills of the Aravallis. Now this is our project site in Kishangarh. Kishanbagh in Jaipur. You can see the Aravallis on the extreme end, and you can see the fossilized sand dunes in front. So these fossilized sand dunes are perhaps 10 to 12,000 years old. And one of the geologists conveyed this to me that, many a times when you dig these old sand dunes, you do find records of civilization, because the sand is getting deposited year-on-year basis. And there are also different instances of, sudden piling up of sand. So you do get such information. Now, I wanted to highlight, though it is not the intention of this talk, but Aravallis are in really bad shape. And we all know what are the reasons for this bad shape. There's huge urbanization. If you drive from here to Alwar or from Jaipur to, all the way to Udaipur, you will find that there is exploitation of Aravalli going on. There's so much demand on the Aravalli rocks, whether it is for mineral or whether it is for building material, there is huge demand. This is on the way to Jaipur, and this hill we have been witnessing for over now 7-8 years that it's being eaten slowly. Now, apart from human pressure, there is also developmental pressure. There is also this whole thing about invasive. You can see on the front, there is Prosopis juliflora. And on the right side of the hill, there is Prosopis juliflora colonizing the hill. On the left side, that's Dhaw, the Anogenesis pendula, the native plant, which is very hardy and is browsed by cattle and the wild herbivores. But it's losing ground. Now, let's explore the jungles. Now, I think I met this plant in 2005. 2005, Pradeep took me to Mangarmani. He asked me, do I know Mangarmani? I said, no, I have not heard of Mangarmani. He said, let's go. And we went early in the morning and we saw this. This is Boswellia serrata, or salai, or doodh ka ped. The moment I saw it, I was in love with this tree. And I have taken maybe 100 pictures of this tree now over different seasons. And it seems to me, there's a dance of nature happening here. But what fascinates me is this particular tree, which is Boswellia serrata, is losing ground in our part of Aravalli, in the northern Aravalli, and especially in the NCR region, we are losing it in Haryana. And there are only few patches left of Boswellia here. But what you can see is in the background, there are different species from Ronge, which is Acacia leucoflora, to Barna, which is Crativa, to Albizia odoratissima. But most of it, the brown bit, brown gray bit is Dhaw, the Anogeissus pendula. I think if there was no Dhaw, our jungles would be completely barren. Now, let me talk a little bit about Boswellia, because Boswellia, Boswellia is a common tree actually. It's not a rarity, but in our NCR, it is a rarity. You go to any jungle in central India, you'll find Boswellia. You know, it's a climax species in the Aravallis, which means that best of the forest will have Boswellia as its forest on the top canopy. And usually the slopes are with Anogeissus pendula, the Dhaw. So I'm going to keep using Boswellia and Salai, interchanging them, yeah? So please don't get confused. Salai, Salar, Doob, that's the common name given to this plant. It's Boswellia. Now, Boswellia is, you know, you'll find on the hilltops, outcrops. If you go to Ranthambore, if you go to Sariska, Udaipur, any of the jungles of Udaipur, Jhalana, Kumbhalgarh, you'll find Boswellia on the top. Now, what is fascinating about this tree is it's very, very flexible. So if you wanted to climb these trees, and I have climbed one of those, it's very scary because they are moving, you know, while you're climbing. They are not solid wood. They are very flexible, and it's very aromatic. So that's why the Loban that you get in the market comes out of this particular plant, and it's also valued highly in medicine, from arthritis to promising research on cancer. But what I wanted to mention was that the canopy is very, very open, and the tree is not solid, was not woody, like, you know, like neem, this fellow, and we have observed in the jungles during a storm, it will sway, you know, the branches will go all the way down, touching the ground, and then come back, but it won't break. It won't break easily. So that kind of led to understanding that, you know, this plant has very sparse leaves, and it's an adaptation, you know, to be on the top of the hill where the wind velocities are going to be very high. It doesn't want to work as a sail and block the wind and get destroyed in the process. It wants the wind to pass through it. And then it's another strategy to be flexible so that it doesn't get broken down by the wind. Isn't that marvelous? Isn't that spectacular how it adapts? This is a Boswellia forest in Jhalana, and you can see, you know, a lot of it there. You can also see, so the Boswellia ranges from, you know, 90% Boswellia to 20+ percentage in a Boswellia forest. So you'll find many companion species. One of the companion is Sterculia urens, or the kullu, or the ghost tree. I'm sure many of you know about this tree, ghost tree. So the companion species, so you'll find all of that. Then it's also an open jungle. It's not a very close canopy jungle. In some places it is, but not largely in the Aravalli, it's not a close canopy jungle. So you'll find grasses in between. You'll find lots of shrubs in between. Many a times you'll find adusa, gruyas, carondas. You'll find euphorbias in the open spaces. Many a time, and the companion species are Rhytias to Lanias to Sterculias. This is the flower of Boswellia, very pretty. I mean, it's much smaller than what it's showing in the screen. This is the fruit, and fruit exudes gum. This will dry up, and then that's Boswellia jungle, and I'll try to interpret this for you. The top canopy, as I mentioned, is Salai. The dense, thick, greenish plant is Ficus mollis, another companion. Ficus mollis is amazing species, and it's one of the ficus which grows on the hilltops, you know, and it's amazing. The trunk is whitish, And you wonder, when everything is bare, this green blob is it's as if it doesn't, nothing matters. Then you have dhaw, a lot of dhaw. Then you have kirkeep. Now kirkeep is something I will mention later. Kirkeep is another interesting climber which does not have leaves. Now we'll move from Boswellia to dhaw. Now this, many of you would know what this is. This is Mangarbani Godariya Das Baba's temple. This is the place where he took samadhi and prevented anyone from breaking the twig in this jungle. Unfortunately, this jungle is all sold, and it's just being protected by one geo, not even a notification. So here you see the thick dhaw. And now when you talk about dhaw jungle, dhaw is also a climax species, and the canopy is very tight. And in fact, it's very difficult to walk in a dhaw jungle. It's so tight that you can't walk under a dhaw forest if it's not explored. And of course, it becomes bare, completely bare. It has beautiful color when it is going bare. When its leaves are drying, they become copperish tinged, and then they fall. You can also see some Boswellia patches in between, struggling with the dhaw canopy. This is dhaw in its phase when it's going into drying season, and it's laden with fruit. There's tiny fruits over there. Again, this is in another season where Boswellia is now wilting, and the jungle is showing another color. If you remember the color of the jungle that I showed you before. This is the fruit of dhaw, and all of that will, if you hold it, it will all come off, and each of those rosettes are seeds. It's very pretty, if you hold it, it's very pretty, and the colors are stunning sometimes. This is a dhaw jungle in Mangarbani again. You'll find in Alwar, Sariska, a lot of dhaw. And dhaw is browsed by cattle. It's loved by cattle. And the wood is very strong and often used for handles, and wherever you need hardwood that can bear torture, you use this wood. Another fascinating thing about dhaw is that it does this mat business. If it is browsed, then it becomes a mat, and this is its strategy. If I was a nilgai, I would be browsing it, and slowly it will spread itself wide and become a mat of a thicker mat of dhaw. So if I'm a nilgai, I'll try to eat from the corners and not go to the center, because it is good enough for me to eat from the corner. And slowly you're seeing that it's taking a conical shape, and that conical shape keeps on emerging until it becomes a small tree. So this shrub or this mat may be 20 years old. We never know, we can't say. You can walk over it, it's so hard. But that's the strategy of dhaw. When it will let the browsers eat from the corner, and slowly with time it will grow and become from the center, it will move up and become a tree. Now dhaw is, when Nick talked about colonial forest, dhaw is one of the trees that does this fancy thing called cloning. So what it does is its roots get exposed, and then a new plant emerges from that root. And we need to do more research on it, but most of the dry deciduous plants, especially in our arid, semi-arid areas, plants tend to do this. But dhaw particularly does this a lot. There is another cousin of it, Anogeis sericea, subspecies Namularia, which does this as well. But it's in the nadis of the Arthar region where it does that. So here, Pradeep believes that this is, it behaves like a clonal forest, or who knows that large patches of forest are of dhaw. I have seen a lot of regeneration of dhaw, like in Madhav National Park, and even in Sariska, I have seen a lot of regeneration of the dhaw. So one would assume that maybe it does cloning in some regions and regenerates with the seeds in some region. Now this is the flower of dhaw, and that's the fruit. So each pom-pom thing is an inflorescence. Each thing is a flower. That's how the dhaw behaves. This is not strictly Aravalis, but this is where Aravalis meet Vindhyas. This is near Kota. It's middle forest, and you can see dhaw. Amazing. I mean, almost 98% is dhaw. You know, in the valley where there is seasonal water stream, you'll find Arjun or Kadam or other species which love jamuns and gullars, but on the hill, mostly dhaw. Now that's Pradeep taking a picture of that ghost. Can you see the ghost on the right? There's a black shadow. No, this is a granite hill. And he's taking the picture of this cloth rags hanging from dhaw. So that's dhaw, you know, wherever you're finding rags, those are dhaw plants. And people, there is a belief that, you know, by doing so, you get rid of skin allergies and many other diseases. So this is a common occurrence that happens in Rajasthan and Haryana, where you tie a rag to a tree, and here in this case it is dhaw. Now I was talking about granite and how difficult it is to grow in granite. Here you can see that nothing else is growing, and where there is a ledge, there is you know, life happening. You can see Oropitium, you can see Tephrosia, you can see smaller plants, mosses, lichens growing together and creating a little garden, you know. And once they are slowly weathering the granite as well. And you will see over time, other plants will colonize this. That's again another strategy, yeah. That's again another strategy of plants. First, they let other pioneer species. So that's an interesting concept, pioneer species. It's also called colonizing species, like our colonizers, DLF types, Unitech types, who make cities. These colonizers, these pioneers, such as Dhak, Semal, they occupy new areas. So one of the challenge of Manas or Kaziranga is to get rid of these plants, you know, because the grasslands are eaten up by these plants. That's the companion species of Boswellia called Kullu. Now Kullu is Kadaya, Kullu, ghost tree. I mean, it's remarkable how this plant grows out of rocks, and the leaves are very large. They are very big leaves plant, and the fruit is eaten by monkeys and other herbivores. Even you and me can eat it. That's the fruit. That's the pod. Very hairy. So all monkeys find it very difficult to open these pods because it's all bristles are very itchy. Not so itchy, but they prick you. So monkeys have to really try hard to get to the fruit. That's the Kullu from Aravalli Biodiversity Park above the amphitheater in full inflorescence. That's the fruit forming out of the flower. Those are the large leaves of Kullu, yeah. And that's the flower. Very hairy, see? This is Ficus mollis. So mollis, I mean, I clearly you will never miss a Kullu in a jungle. You know, it's the trunk is white. It's, you know, there is a reason why it's called ghost tree, because if you see it in the evening light, when there is, excuse me, there is no leaves. There are no leaves. It is all, it's white, and it works as a It looks like a ghost. Now this is Ficus mollis. I have introduced you to this plant before, and look, this is in Sariska and going. It's while everything else is has shed their leaves and are dry. Ficus mollis is green. Another interesting tree, very interesting, usually not considered from Aravalli, but is very interesting because you know, we found one valley full of this plant called Hymnodictyon excelsum or Bhormal. And in 2013, we were doing a survey of Mangarbani flora, and we chanced upon this tree. And it was just not one tree, the whole valley had at least 100 trees. So there was no way that it was brought in. It was already there, and Mangarbani keeps on throwing these surprises, you know. So this you will, I mean, if you go to Rajaji, you'll find this plant maybe 100 feet tall, you know. And here it is not that tall. It grows on the boulders, as you can see. It's coming out of the boulders, and often along the gorges that you will find this tree. Very handsome in leaf when it is in leaf. Now this is the Kheer Keep that I was talking about. Now if you drive from here to Alwar through Jirka, you will find many hills with this you know, these wiry thing falling from the top of the hill. This is Kheer Keep. It's an Apocynaceae member. And you know, it's like my hair actually. Now, when you move down, there are, as I mentioned, you know, the slope forests are different, the top forests are different, and the valley forests are different. So when you meet the valley, the composition changes, the plant community changes, and here we are seeing flame of the forest, dhak. This is beyond Sariska. We can see salai on the top. We can see dhok on the steep slopes. You can see dhak, khajur, chamrod, kam, chilbil, barna, dudhi, kankero, kasai, and many other species on the valley, in the valleys. So the valleys will also differ. If there is a seasonal stream, then the composition is different. If there is no seasonal stream, then the composition is different. And dhak somehow dominates between Sariska to Thela to all the way to Ajabgarh. The valleys are all full of dhak. It's a delight. It's a delight if you go in the month of, you know, March, driving through that patch from Sariska, from actually Alwar all the way to Thela and beyond. You'll find dhak in flower, and jungle does look like in fire. Here you can see salai is on the top, and khajur, the Phoenix sylvestris at the base. And what you are also seeing is Euphorbia caducifolia, or Thor. Now Thor is a degraded signature of degraded forest. You know, it is more xerophytic. You'll find Thor all the way to Thar. So if you go to Jaisalmer and drive to the outskirts of Jaisalmer, you'll find a lot of Thor. In fact, the largest of the Thors are found there, and I'm going to show you some of the Thors, which large Thors that I have seen. And we have planted. We don't see this in Delhi, but we do see this in Mangar. We have seen Mangar in Mangar. We have seen Jirka. We also seen Sariska. A lot of it in Jaipur, Jhalana, and beyond. I don't know, maybe I missed the slide, but yeah. So the dhak forest, we are talking about dhak, and that's the dhak flowering and dhak fruit. It's a Butea monosperma. The fruit has one seed, therefore monosperma. Now in the valley, you also get kadam, and this is kadam tree on the left, which is that's Sundar nursery, and that's the emerging leaves, stipules and spathe and the leaves, and that's flower of kadam, cam. It has beautiful smell. There is another tree which is worth mentioning is barna. Now, barna, when you go to Central Ridge, sometimes you'll find coming out of rocks, and barna does that. Even in Mangar, where only dhaw is growing, you will find barna also coming out. And it has incredible flowering, as most of you must have seen. Even in Delhi, in Lodi Gardens, you have barna, and when it flowers, it's beautiful. Now, another tree that's worth mentioning is the Cordia garaf, or gundi. Now, gundi grows in the valleys as well as little rocky outcrop, and also grows into the grows in the sand dunes. So this is a very important tree, and I am amazed that not many people use this tree for afforestation work. It's a very fast-growing species. It's it's browsed, but it's not terribly browsed by animals, and it adds character to the landscape very fast. Now, another species that I wanted to highlight is Moringa. Now, the species here is Moringa concanensis, or wild Moringa, and here you are seeing this in on the border of Jaisalmer and Bardmer, on the sand. So there are 8 or 9 of them, and I think up to 150 kilometers you don't find another Moringa. Then there is a hill of granite where you find a lot of Moringa. So Moringa has adapted to both sandy condition as well as the rocky condition. So here Moringa is on the left on the rocks. I was mentioning about Bardmer, and that's where you will find Moringa growing. It's all full of pods. It's a very fast germinating species. Again, another species one should use in rewilding in the Aravallis. It's very fast to grow. It just needs a little bit of shelter, and it really booms, And then it has a very beautiful flowering. You can see the flowers on the right-hand side. And it's a handsome tree, of course, a weak tree. It has multiple uses. You can eat, birds can eat, animals can eat, and all of that. Another species that I wanted to mention here is, the species that I'm mentioning right now is that they are generalists. You can find them in the sand, you can find them on the rock as well. Like on the granite hills and on the rocky Aravalli, we have seen this particular plant. It is called Mithijal. And Mithijal is Salvadora oleoides, and it is it's a delight to see this tree. It's a city it's a world unto itself. It's a city unto itself. All the birds, when they go in, you will find owls there. You will find jackals. You will find hares resting there. And I'll show you a picture why so. And here you will find many of the jars growing together. And that's the reason. The whole leaves droop down, and they kind of, you can't see the bark. If it is not lobed, if it is not browsed, this is the state it is in. And it becomes, it's like you lift the branches and go in and see the inside of the plant. It's just beautiful. It has tiny berries, which are eaten by humans as well as animals and birds. That's another species that's a companion species. Again, you'll find both in the valleys of the Aravallis as well as in the rocky outcrops. This is called Bistendu. Bistendu is Diosporus cordifolia. And those Bistendu is like tendu. You can mistake tendu for Bistendu when you just look at the fruit. But on the left is civet potty with lots of Bistendu seeds. So if you walk up the Mangar Valley, you will find a lot of young Bistendu germinating, a lot of young Bistendu. And one wonders, because that seems to be the path that civets take, and you can see poop all over. And these seeds are loose. They have gone through the gut of the animal. They are ready to germinate with the with the rains. They germinate easily, and then and they colonize, and they don't mind. This is one of the understory tree in our in our jungle, which doesn't mind, being under a bigger tree and can do with less shade. That's a shrub, becomes a small tree called the Tranga or Goyak hair. Goyak hair is very, the flowers are very pretty. It tend to become a little invasive when the diversity is low, but when the diversity is fine, it becomes a good part of the whole biodiversity. And as many people would know, that the true flowers are niche, the yellow ones, and the pink ones are just showing, attracting ones. That's Chamrod. Chamrod is again a very, very important tree of our Aravalli hills. You can see Chamrod again in the valley and lower foothills. You will find the berries are eaten by animals and birds and humans. And as Pradeep used to often say that every rain Chamrod flowers, and it does. For many, many years I've been observing that every time there is rain, Chamrod comes into flower. And it just doesn't come into flower, it will also fruit. So the flowers are true flowers. They are going to fertilize. So it's a fascinating tree. Again, I think we should use this in rewilding as well as in our gardening. It's quite a good tree to be used. This is another shrub understory that you'll find mostly in the mature forests of Aravallis, where you will, such as salai dominated forest, you will find Helictris or Marod-Phali. This is a shrub, and that's the flower of the Marod-Phali. It's very interesting flower. I call it Chilawa Murga. That's how they hang in the shops. That's Karonda. Again, in our open jungles, you will find Karonda with fruit, and these fruits will turn black. They're very delicious. They are much more delicious than the cultivated one. The berries are very, very small. They are small, much smaller than the cultivated Karonda. The bush is very fragrant. Now, I think we can't talk about our jungles without talking about bear, and we have many species of bear in the Aravallis. From Mauritiana to Xylocarpa to Oniplii. And like if you go to Seriska, the Seriska Valley in some places is full of bear. Many times Nambil area, which is your Jhad bear, will become like, if you go to, if you go to Badmer, Jaisalmer, or even Jodhpur, the same Jhad bear which you see in Delhi becomes a small tree there. So it's an ecotype there. But this is from Jaisalmer, and you can see in relation to Shorajit, this is such a handsome, massive guy. Now, I was talking about Thor or Euphorbia caducifolia, and you can see on the top, that's Thor, and Euphorbia at the base. And Euphorbia also becomes a nursery. I've seen a lot of Euphorbia becoming nursery from plants, birds, and animals. So we have seen jackals resting there. We have seen wild hare resting there. But one of the unique things from a rewilder's point of view, I have seen many trees coming out of Thor bush or Thor plant, which becomes bushy. Many seeds enter the Thor plant, and then they germinate and then they grow. So I have seen many Dhor coming out of Thor, which is remarkable. I think that could be one of the strategies if you have to take up large-scale rewilding work. That's Pradeep with a large Thor. You can see how many Thors there, stems are there. When I spoke to Dr. Satish Sharma, I showed him one picture of a large Thor, and he said he has counted one Thor with more than 4,000 branches. And I was surprised. Another species that we have to mention when you talk of Aravalli, and this is of course part of the degraded part of Aravalli, is Kumat or Acacia Senegal. The Kumat is, whenever the Boswellia loses ground, and the thaw also loses ground, and you will find euphorbia mostly. You will also start finding Acacia Senegal or the Gond ka ped, Kumat. And you will find it in the hills of Aravalli, also in the sands of, in the sandy dunes. Again, has multiple uses. Humans, animals, bees, all use it. I wanted to mention some of the common species that otherwise are common, but are remarkable, like this arc. We have seen habitats of arc, where nothing else is growing, arc will take over. And then once it grows, it creates the possibility for other plants to, come back. And that's beautiful flowers of arc. That's a tall arc in Desert National Park. It is about, I think, maybe more than 20 feet. So you can see handsome size of arc there. Another tree, and it holds a different landscape actually. In the Aravallis, where the sand is stabilized, and in that sand, sometimes you get water accumulating. That is the land of babool, and you'll find a lot of babool. In fact, all the agricultural lands, all the way from here to Udaipur, will have babool as growing. And in fact, you can make out that, wherever babool is growing, it is, in fact, Pradeep also mentions, I think in jungle trees of central India, that you don't find any more wild patches of babool, because it's all, wherever babool grows, it's an indicator to humans that you can do a cultivation. And humans have taken over all the land where babool grows naturally. You can still see babool, a lot of babool growing, fighting for its own right. It's a very handsome tree. It's a very useful tree for humans and birds and animals. That's the flower of babool, and the pods and distinct pod. You can notice this. Here is another tree worth mentioning. That's Roheda. I'm sorry, this is becoming a long monologue. I wish it was more interactive, but I hope we'll have a chance to talk, have more questions on it. But this is Roheda, a large specimen. You can see a calf standing down, and you get in different colors. Roheda in Bardmer, you will get lots of this. Another tree that you will find in Aravalli, but goes all the way to Thar, is your khejdi, or Prosopis cineraria. That's khejdi. You can see the bark, and that's again an adaptation for the dry, arid landscape. There on the right, you can see a camel reaching to the khejdi plant, to leaves. And that's me in relation to, I think that's the largest khejdi I have seen in very dry Thar. They tend to grow very deep roots, very, very deep roots, and live very long. Care is Caparis decidua, again a very handsome tree, bush, and it holds its own ground. It has its own habitat in Aravallis as well as in sand dunes. That's care flowering. Care teat, what's called teat. Teat is, you can see the care plucked for achar, and that's the care when it's ripe. Birds love it, animals love it. I have also tried it, it's very nice, but it has the flesh is a little bitter, but inside it's nice. That's Indrok, or Anogeisys namillaria, that I was talking about, which again forms a clonal forest in the nadis of, on the outer circle of Aravallis. I think I'll conclude with the extreme Aravallis, extreme Thar species. This is Phog, which is, Phog is also losing ground, unfortunately, to human activities. Phog is a very beautiful shrub, small tree. It makes visiting Thar a delight. You know, Thar is so rich. I mean, Thar is very rich, but Phog makes it unique. And I love going to parts of Desert National Park, which has Phog in it. That's Phog in flower. You can see that's actually flower and then fruiting. It's fruit formation happening. I will conclude here. And every time, you know, when I think of forest, I also get very, very anxious, because we know whenever we go to a forest, we never know when that forest is going to be turned over. Like there is this whole new Bharatmala project. The time from Delhi to Bombay will be reduced to 13 hours. So they are making a road through Sariska, touching, you know, Ranthambore and many other good forests of Aravalis. So, and this thing comes to my mind, what Gandhiji has said, what we are doing to the forests of the world is but a mirror reflection of what we are doing to ourselves and to one another. Thank you. Sanjay, you are mute.
Okay, 1 minute.
हो गया संजय, हो गया, मैंने कर.
Okay. Yeah. Vijay, that we talk, and you want us to some many signature species of Aravalis, and we have a lot of questions. I also have a lot of questions. I wanted to know, I think we had a little brief chat yesterday about the clonal forest and the clonal behavior, and I was citing an example of the aspens, which are high-growing species in the Rockies, and they also have this cloning behavior where they, a lot of research has been done, and they say that it's a single organism. There are lots and lots of large stand of aspen trees. All happen to be one. So you gave examples of the bushy behavior, and they touch this thing and it starts growing from the middle. So is there a possibility that the entire forest could be just one organism and manifesting into different this thing, the entire stand, or is it we do not have
we don't have any research study which proves this, that that we have these large clonal forests, but you do see plants cloning. So there is definitely a need to explore this further, like Anogenesis pendula, Anogenesis sericea, Namillaria, they all do this. Even Boswellia does it. So to what extent the organism is, how big the, I mean, sometimes we wonder when we stand at Mangarbani and say, can this whole thing be one organism? Can you believe that? Can you imagine if the whole 600 years is one organism?
It's one giant, a long living 400,000-500,000 years. I don't, you don't know.
That's right. That's right. That's right. But there is definitely a need to research this.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Are there any questions?
Do you think? But I want to see the future of Aravallis, because there's a lot of threat by pressure by organization, mining, illegal mining, and the entire the two major cities of India, Delhi and Mumbai, are connected through the highway, and pass through major ways, and they're making a little corridor. And if it actually happens in the next 10 years, 15 years, a lot of resources, the resource crunch, there's no. So, and what do you suggest to the powers that be?
I don't know if they will. I don't know if they're seeking suggestion. That's one big drawback. But if they sought any advice, I would think that we should map the area and first look at the forests that we have, look at the forest corridors we have. You know, forests as isolated patches are no good. They are dead in many ways. You know, so we'll have to think about corridors. So I think we have to protect the corridors between Sariska, Viratnagar, jungles of Jaipur district, all that whole landscape has to be protected. And then accordingly, you decide your plan your Bharatmala, if at all. I mean, if there is a need for Bharatmala, we already have a express way going through from here to Delhi, from Delhi to Bombay, and connecting such major cities. But I think what the fear I have is Bharatmala is going to colonize more land, and all the wilderness that you saw in the form of villages, in the form of pasture lands, will be converted into cities. And that's a big threat. That's a huge threat for the wilderness that we have in our rural areas, because they are planning 21 new cities in Bharatmala. So just imagine 21 new cities and then many towns. So it will eat up all the wilderness that you have, right now in that patch. So you want to ask anything? Are there?
Thanks, Vijay, for that lovely talk. We have a few questions flowing in. Okay. Maybe you could just stop sharing your screen so that we can see you, like everyone can see you better.
Okay, so what should I do?
Just stop sharing your screen.
Stops? Acha.
Yes, just stop screen share.
Okay.
You should get it right at the top. Yeah.
Stop video. Stop video?
No. No, stop screen share.
Okay. I don't know how to do this.
Okay, never mind. Let's go ahead like this only. It's fine, I think then. Okay, so I'll just read out the questions. Okay. Yeah, perfect. We can see you now.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask you a few questions that we have coming here on chat.
Please.
So the first one is from Misha, who's asking that, Vijay, could you please elaborate on trees arising from rootstocks?
To tell about what about them? There are many plants, like all of them. Like if you look at Aravalli Biodiversity Park, rootstock, which means that roots which are there and were, because of anthropogenic pressures, were destroyed. If the roots are live, they come back and new plants form. So I think all the plants, from balanitis, which is hingo, to dho, to salai, to gurjan, to dhak, all of them come back from the rootstock. And that's why it's one of the prominent strategies in rewilding, where you let the land heal. Yeah, but if the land is like if the land was a mining site, and if the new species that are coming you see is mostly Prosopis juliflora, then natural regeneration doesn't work, or the rootstock method doesn't work, because the rootstock mainly is of Prosopis juliflora.
Okay, so Misha just asked another question to clarify what she was asking. So she's saying, what exactly is a rootstock? How long can they survive, and which trees have them? Okay, you've answered them all actually.
Yeah, so I have to tell you a story about Hymnodictyon, the Bhormal, one tree which is coming out of the bouldery rocks. I picked up the root from Rajaji. I was very curious because I had seen it into 2013 in Mangar, and I wanted to grow in the Aravalli Biodiversity Park. So I picked up the root from a field in Rajaji in Saharanpur district, and I put it in a little soil and tied it up and came to the nursery in Aravalli Biodiversity Park and put it in a poly bag. You won't believe it, but after 10 months, I saw a new leaf coming out. So that's example of rootstock. But I don't know, I don't think we have study as to how species differ in terms of rootstock revival.
Okay, yeah, that's quite interesting. We have another question here. Would you suggest any of the plants or trees that you've just walked us through for planting in our cities to bring back some of the native vegetation?
I think that has been my mission for last maybe 15 years now. that we have to think of our city as a forest, you know. We can be selective in terms of the show value of a plant, but you saw all of these are so showy. Like look at ghost tree, look at barna, look at amaltash, look at gurjan, look at, you know, all these are beautiful trees, you know, in their own right, or khejdi, but we seem to ignore them completely. So from last year onwards, we have started selling plants from our nursery, and close to 40 species that we were selling. And it's not only the trees, it's also the climbers, it's also the shrubs, it's also, you know, the ground cover. That's important, you know. So all that has, I mean, we see on the roadside verges, you know, this MCD gives contract to contractors, horticulture contractors, and they come and they clean everything, and then they plant Caliandra and you know, other species, Kaner and all. And because they are light demanding plants, you often don't happen. But what you see is Chamrod coming up, you will see Adusa coming up, you will see Plumbago coming, all these native species coming out from the rootstock, which is very endearing. I laugh whenever I cross, you know, opposite IIT, and you keep on seeing this phenomena year after year after year. But I don't think we have that sensibility yet, where we appreciate our native vegetation, where we can look at city in a different light, where we can see at city as not just for humans, but for the wildlife as well. And therefore your planting scheme has to be more than just showy plants, but plants which birds and animals and plants themselves use. I can go on and on about it. Yeah.
Yep. You touched upon one point about how you are distributing these saplings from the nursery. So a lot of people have asked this question, that where they can get seeds or saplings of these Aravali trees.
Yeah, so we have started selling it and hope we'll continue to sell it. So that is going to be there. But there are other nurseries also who have, there is Afri, which sells plants. There are a couple of nurseries in Ahmedabad and Udaipur who also sell some plants, wild plants of our region.
Okay, maybe we'll just take the last couple of questions.
Sure.
So this one's from Lakshmi, who's asking, is Jal Pilu the same as Meetha Jal? Salvadora oleoides, if I pronounce
That's exactly what I said, Salvadora oleoides. And you will find it all through the Aravalis and the Thar landscape. You'll find it there.
Okay, and the last question for today is, what are the alien species threatening Aravalis of Delhi?
We all know them. We know Prosopis juliflora, and in fact, it's fantastic to go to the Central Ridge and take a walk into a restoration project, which was started maybe early 20th century by the British to rewild the Central Ridge. And after 100 years, you see what has happened to that place, and you will find whole of Prosopis. It's nothing but Prosopis forest. But there are also patches of Bhaw, there are patches of Cam. But you also, the new invasives are Leucaena, the Subabool, which many farmers are promoting. Some of the permaculture people are promoting. Some of these natural gardening people are promoting, and that's becoming invasive all over. That's another major threat, I think, in the whole of Aravalis. There are other, lantana is another big invasive, but I think we have failed in eradicating lantana. It's a tough job, and now other animals are eating it and using it. Then there are many others, such as partheniums and xanthiums and verbicinas. There are many other species, but these are the major tree species that affect our biodiversity.
Okay, thanks for that. One last question from Surya Prakash, who posted on Facebook, so I missed his question. How often have you observed Salvadora around Aravali Biodiversity Park?
How often I have observed?
Yep.
Around Aravali Biodiversity Park. It is there in Aravali Biodiversity Park, but I have not seen it outside. I have seen it in Mangarbani. I have seen it in Jirka. I have seen it a lot in Jirka and those forests. I have seen it in Alwar, many places. There are actually pure forest patches of Salvadora Oleodes, and it's fascinating to see those trees. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Vijay. We'll close with that. Thank you everyone for joining. Just as a reminder, we have two very interesting talks tomorrow as well. The first one is at 11 a.m. It's called Suno Kahani, which is a fun storytelling session for the entire family by Amita. That's at 11 a.m. And then at 5 p.m. we have a Raptors for Dummies by Rajni Suvarna. So hope to see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.